Hi, this is Phil, Dirty Drive Away, welcoming you back to whichever part of the series this is, not too sure. So basically what we're going to do now is we are moving on to the gearbox. This is a Interpump RS500 Gearbox. The chances are you will have this on your washer if you've got a reduction gearbox system. Very popular type of gearbox. I think it uses a 1 inch hollow input. If you'd have watched the previous video, don't know, but anyway, another quick rundown. These pumps are attached, so I keep calling it a bloody pump. It's not a pump, it's a goddamn gearbox. These gearboxes are attached to the pump here, gearbox here. The gearbox is attached to the pump internally, so you can't separate these two without breaking open the gearbox. Strange design, because I've had this apart before, and there's like 4 bolts, screws, whatever you want to call them, inside here, behind the gear, and it's got a very, very small O-ring on it. So small, in fact, and so thin that it's easy to break them when you're screwing the gearbox back onto the pump. So it's always worth having plenty of them just in case. You may just be able to see where I've had it apart before. They're quite, it's not uncommon to get leaks on these, but there's not really many places that they can actually leak from. You've obviously got to seal this end around the shaft. You'll have a seal in this end. I think there's an O-ring as well which goes behind here against the mating surface of the pump. And obviously there's a big O-ring that goes around the two centre, the two halves. It's a funny sort of shaped O-ring, so obviously it's specific to this gearbox. So you may find it, if it's leaking out of one of these two seals here, then obviously you've got a bit more of an issue, and it means stripping the whole thing down. I'm based in a full strip anyway, so you'll be able to see here how I take this apart. The other very, very common place this leaks from is the sight glass. Now it's on this side. I'm just going to see if I can move you round. Let me just, excuse the wobbling. If you can see, there, the sight glass. Very, very common point of leakage. Basically these sight glasses are only made of a plastic, you know, they're not glass. Obviously it's your level for your oil. Let's put you back over here. They leak very, very quickly from there. I've actually gone through 3 sight glasses in about 5 years, because basically the plastic cannot handle the temperature, and it basically starts to break down and perish, and then it cracks. So right underneath the bottom it starts to crack, right under there, and it starts to dribble. And if you look at it, you can't always see it, but that is going to be the first point, is that sight glass there. So if you're getting leaking a bit of oil on your trolley, check that sight glass, because I can guarantee you that'll be the first place it will leak. They're about £7 each. I've got a couple more of them in the box, because they do eventually go. And if you then tip your washer on the side, you can actually, they only unscrew from the outside. You can actually unscrew that and pop a new one in. I always put a bit of sealant around it anyway. But yeah, going back to these halves here, I don't know if you can just about see, there's like a white stuff. That's basically a sealant. It's a gasket sealer that you use for mating engine casings together. So I use Yama Bond, very expensive, but I've got loads of it. I got it from the States when I was over there once. You can use 3 Bond, but yeah, basically the stuff that you use to seal engine casings together. Because this O-ring here, alright, O-rings don't leak, but they can, and it is an arse ache to get all this apart just to change a bloody O-ring. So it is well worth, when you're putting this back together, is to put some of the sealer on there when you're mating it back up. Obviously I'm going to do this strip down, and then I'll do other videos, but I'll basically tag on the rebuild side of this so I can show you exactly what I'm doing when it comes to putting the sealer in, so you can see what I'm doing. Right, enough chatting. This has just been taken out of the trolley. it's still got oil in it. So the first thing I'm going to do is basically just drain the oil out. You've obviously got two dipsticks. They're not oil tight by any means. Again, these are crap. They just fall apart. You can see this little yellow bit just falls off. So they can leak out of here as well if you've put the wrong type of oil in. I've had issues with oil. Last time I serviced it, I was told on, should I say, reasonable grounds that you can use any, I think it's EP8090 oil. So go and get it from Health Foods, they said. So obviously I went to Health Foods, I got some of their EP8090, put it in here, and for some unknown reason it foamed up like a bastard. It just basically, when it got up to temperature, it foamed up so much that it started spewing oil out of the top here, to a state that it only run if the oil level was quite low, that it was a good way below the sight glass. So obviously when I spoke to Dual Pumps, people that obviously make these washers, they said, well, you can use a straight 90, but using a good quality, you can use the Halford stuff, but if you use a good quality stuff like Castrol or the genuine Interpump oil, you'll find that it won't foam as much. I don't know, it must have something with some surfactants in it or something like that. But yeah, so under here is the drain bolt for the oil. You probably could do this whilst it is still in the in the washer. Let's see what size it is. I think it's massive. Yeah, for some reason they use massive bolts on these things. What is it? 22mm. There you go, 22mm. So I've got this basically held in a vise. It's sturdy, but I don't really want to swing on it because it may end up. See what I mean? They're just let's just use a frickin' socket. Lefty loosey, righty tighty and all that. So there's not much room to play in. I'm going to have to go for a deep. Someone's been stacking shit on the toolbox. Right. Yeah, you bastard. See? If in doubt, give it a clout. So I have my container. It's going to get stiff on me now because I think there might be an O-ring in there. Let's see if I can go back to the old spanner. There's not a lot of oil in these gearboxes. As you can see, they don't want this bloody bolt coming out. There is, I'm almost certain there's an O-ring in here, that's why it's so tight. It just catches on the O-ring, and obviously O-rings, you can pick up O-rings pretty cheap if you know the size. But obviously O-rings are easy to perish when doing things like this. There we go. Just came out of there with a bit of a, yeah, there's an O-ring on the end. Just see the O-ring there. So let that drain into there. As you see, there's not a lot of oil in there. A bit dirtier than I thought it was going to be, but it's been a while since she's been apart. Obviously when you split these two halves, you're going to get more oil coming out. So is that going to trickle down the side of the vise? Probably. Let's chuck that on the floor. let that drain away down there while I have a little sip of coffee. Right, it is pretty basic from here on in. You're going to want to take all of these bolts off. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I think it's 10. No, 9 I think, 9 bolts. If memory serves me correctly, they are 8mm hex heads, Allen heads, whatever you want to call them. If you can, yeah, there we go. You're probably best off using a socket. So grab your, is it 8? No, it's not an 8, is it? Bloody penis, it's a 6. Yeah, to take your 6, if you've got 6mm hex head, you will need some various tools when taking it apart. This is very basic. There's not a lot in here. So you find access to these is limited. You're only going to be able to get into a couple of these. So I would just go round, crack them all off. I'm not a massive fan of hex heads, but each to their own. You could probably replace these with stainless if you wanted to. And that's it, I can't really get into any more. So you're going to have to use your traditional Allen key, and then if you need some leverage, you can either hit it with a hammer, because these do flex quite a lot, or you can get a spanner, and if you've got the right angle, I don't know if you can really see that, let's just pan you up a little bit, get a spanner, and you can then just use it as, you're supposed to be able to use it as leverage, but for some reason that is FT. Let's see if I can find, there it is. Let's find a thumb fucker. There we go. Quick tap of the thumb fucker. And it cracks them loose. Shit falling down everywhere now. Just make sure your Allen key and your hex head is properly in the hole. Because if it is not, you're going to end up rounding your heads off. So that's all of them loosened. Once you've got them loosened, just take them all out. Then you can have the messy part. You could wear gloves while doing this if you want to. Well, they are kind enough to leave holes here, so when you come to do them up, you're going to need a torque wrench when taking a lot of this stuff apart, because you don't want to strip the threads when you put them back in. It's a pain in the arse that you've actually got to take off the gear, strip the gearbox before you can actually get to the sodding pump. I mean, if you were just doing general maintenance to the pump, then you wouldn't really have to do this. But I'm doing a full strip of the pump. These pumps are way too expensive not to keep on top of the maintenance. I think one of them pumps there is about 900 quid. Whereas the service kit's probably cost you a couple of hundred. I will be doing a full seal and piston replacement in that pump. That'll be in a later video. A good way to check if you've got any oil problems is when you've got these apart. Have a look in here. I mean, it should be relatively clean in here. There shouldn't be any oil pooling up. You might get a bit of rusty dirt. You know, obviously depending upon how your machine's used, but it shouldn't be pissing oil. You shouldn't have loads of oil in here. And also have a look on the engine side as well, and vice versa. Obviously, if these are sealed, they should be pretty much dry. Same as like if you put your finger in the shaft, although it's dirty, it is clear. Right, here comes the messy part, because I'm sure this is going to piss oil absolutely everywhere. Let's preempt a little bit of oil spillage. Let's put a tarpaulin on the floor. Don't do this in your wife's kitchen. Right. Without the sealer, this should technically just pull apart. Don't go levering on any of these mating surfaces in here. If need be, give it a gentle tap with a rubber hammer. Don't thump the shit out of this with a metal hammer, because you'll crack it. And these can be quite expensive. So if need be, give it a gentle tap. So long as you've undone all of them bolts, you should find within a couple of taps. Just double check I've got all the bolts. No, I've left one in. Oh, you penis. See, it's always handy to double check before you go thumping the shit out of something, because you can thump all day. If that bolt's in there, you're going to end up breaking something. So there we go. I'm just hitting on this is the mating surface to the engine. This is not a detrimental side. You don't want to break it, but you don't want to go sticking screwdrivers in this hole and levering on it, because you will never get a good seal again. So you can see it's starting to break. Here we go. It has broken. So there we go. So when you gently, you will see the O-ring in there. I've got some more oil. So when you pull this, you're going to find the O-ring, because I put a sealer on it before. It's probably going to stick to one half or the other, so just gently ease it off. Do not be tempted to reuse these O-rings. For the sake of the couple of quid that they are, just buy a new one. So there you go, that's the inside of the gearbox. You can see exactly how simple it is. Two gears. Two, what are they called? This kind of worm, they're back cut, aren't they? So yeah, you can see that's basically what turns. Let's get rid of this O-ring. So you can kind of see it's got like a little groove in it, or a shape to it. So yeah, this is basically it. Can't really get much closer. So that's all that's in there. It's two gears. This side's from the input of from the engine. That's what they do, is a reduction. So obviously this will be spinning at engine speed, which I think was, what is it, 36. It says 3600 RPM, but it's about 36 something, 3640. 2.2 to 1 reduction. So obviously it pulls this down to about 1440, I think, off the top of my head, without looking it up. But yeah, it all looks good inside. Just have a good old check inside. Make sure there's no chunks of metal. If you've got chunks of metal in here, there's something wrong. That's one half of the case. Put that down there. And let's see if we can get you a better angle. Let me just wipe my hands. Just do a little bit of moving right around here. So there you can see the internal part. Not really a great deal to it. Like I say, it's just purely 2 gears. That is why they are so simple. Yet often overlooked. So this, you can have a little key in here. It's people call it a woodruff key, keyway key. So it's obviously it's got a spline in there. There'll be a key in there. This should just come. Now, did it, or has it got a? Hang on. I can't remember when I took it apart last time. I've got a feeling it has got a. Just double check whenever you're messing with gears, before you go sticking a lever on them, just make sure they haven't got a grub screw, because sometimes there will be a grub screw holding onto the shaft. So just gently rotate. And yes, there is a grub screw. I thought there was. I'll just show you that if I can. Let's just take this camera off the tripod for a second, just so I can show you the grub screw. If you can see in there's a grub screw which holds that gear onto the shaft. So you could be levering on that all day long, and all you end up doing is either stripping the grub screw out or doing some serious damage to the gears. So just find the appropriate Allen key. That's normally what they're going to be. I'm going to say it's going to be a 3 or 4 mil. So this is a 4 mil. Yeah, it's a 4 mil. Typically it's not going to fit that way, so we're going to have to use this way. See if I can use the old leverage trick. Pick the biggest spanner. And yes, you do have to take this gear off to get to the 4 bolts that are behind that hold this gearbox onto the pump. So you don't have to actually take the grub screw out all the way. You can if you want to, but obviously make sure you put it somewhere safe so you don't lose it. So slide this gear off. So it's nice and clean. Put that in now so we don't lose that. Don't lose this key. But make sure you either take it out. So obviously this is now part of the pump. If it is solid and it's well in there, that's fine. If it is loose, make sure you take it out, because you will find that you may forget about it, or if you put the pump down, let's just see, I know it's going to be magnetic, let's see how strong it is, see if we can, no, it's quite in there, so I'm quite happy to leave that alone, because if you start digging on this and start gouging, you might have trouble getting the gear back on. You will have to remove it if you're taking out the seal. Obviously later on it'd be easy to try and get that key out once you've got this other casing off. But you can see these 4 bolts here, which are holding the main gearbox onto the pump. Let's get our trusty 6 mil. Whenever you're working in patterns, it's always good to work at diagonals. Just crack them off. Don't unscrew them fully, just crack them. It just does help to stop potential warpage. You can, when you take them off, you will hear the O-rings, and I'm 99% sure the O-rings are going to be knackered because they get caught up on the threads of the bolts and they just destroy themselves. They are so thin. I think they were about 1.6 mil. Could be smart and just get my you forget you have all these bloody tools. Six mil Allen T-bar. Not everyone's got these tools, but if you've got them, make use of them, whatever makes your life easy. Now you will see what holds this in is the O-ring. Can you see that on the end of there? Let me see. I could just throw it on the floor, as I can't be bothered to bend down and pick it up right now. I'll take another one out. Make sure the O-rings come out, because you don't really want to double up on them when you go to put them back in. Right, let's see if we'll try again. Right. There is an O-ring on there. Try and get it off so you can see it. These will need to be replaced. I'll just throw that one on the floor as well. There. Tiny, tiny. I think they're about 1.6 mil. They're supposed to be round and flat around, but they're not. They're just been squashed. So always replace them. You can buy them on eBay for cheap as chips. Literally. So buy a pack of them, because the chances are when you kind of put this back together, you'll probably knacker a couple of them up on the first attempt. What they do is they basically seal this bolt from the to the actual casing. So your best bet when you put them on, because they're not shouldered bolts, is to get the O-ring right down to the very end, down here, rather than sticking it in there and then screwing it in, because then you're going to end up chomping it up. So put the actual O-ring right up to the bottom of the bolt, wind it in, put a bit of oil on it or a bit of grease on it, just some silicone grease works the best. So yeah, put a bit of grease on it and that'll just help it slide in. If it goes in dry, well, nobody likes sticking things in dry, do they? We'll go with a bit of lube. So take the final bolt out, just hold that casing on there because you know it's going to fall off. Last one, make sure all the O-rings have come out. There's 3 on there, 1's on the floor. This casing will then come off gently, gently. There are more O-rings on this side, as you can see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure they all come out, because again, you don't want to be doubling up on O-rings. If they go on the floor, well, you have to go digging for them afterwards. If you've got access to a little pick, we'll just basically pull them out of there. These are the same size O-rings as the other ones. One's just fallen on the floor. So make sure you've got 8 of these little O-rings in total. And that is the end of the strip. So you'll see there'll be a seal on there for your pump. If you're stripping the pump down, worth changing them. They look all right, but these are NOK seals. NOK, yeah, I think they're NOK. Knox, yeah. Have a look on there, and there'll be a number. If you want, order them from Interpump. If not, just go onto eBay and just basically type in. There's a number on the side. This one is a what is it? A 30. Epoxy cardboard box behind me. SC is a 30 5.57. So that's going to be the internal, external, and the width of the seal. Probably commoner's mark if they're made by NOK. Make sure you buy decent quality seals. NOK, Koyo, SKF. fag. Don't buy cheap shit ones, because if they go, you're going to know about it. You've got to go through all this rigmarole of doing it again. In this case in here, there is one O-ring. Don't neglect the O-ring, which will seal this to this as it mates together. So there's quite a lot of seals going on in here, but again, O-rings are cheap as chips. If you go on to Interpump, they normally list the dimensions of the O-rings on there, so you can order them up. You can order them from Interpump, or you can order them online if you know the size. Probably just common run-of-the-mill sizes. Right, so that is it on the gearbox strip. Yep, next video I will follow this on with the gearbox rebuild, so that'll be after the pump. So hopefully, if I can get my YouTube magic stuff to work, then there'll be playlists so that you can see each step of this as it goes. But yep, that is that's the gearbox strip. Hopefully, following on will be the rebuild. Take it easy. See you soon.